Like, they actually can taste how poor someone is, so they wind up...
Hey,
Ah, ah, ah!
see you. Yeah, he tried to go through.
I analyzed the scanning circuits. All they're looking for is proper Strog ID codes.
Wouldn't Kane have those codes?
What?
Strong to me.
Yeah, I bet they do.
How about it, Kane? You want to try walking through? It should read you as Strong.
Let me see that rocket launcher. Here. Now if you hold scope after you fired a rocket, you can guide it where you want it to go. It's great for shooting around cover.
I'm glad a dead man can upgrade my rocket launcher. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Quake 4, as you could probably tell from the title on the screen. So, some people have Christmas traditions of movies. Some people have Halloween traditions for their games. Quake 4 should technically probably be a Halloween tradition, but I actually played it for the first time in December several years ago. So it's kind of become a December tradition because it kind of melded itself into a nice, comfortable nook in my heart. I should probably get that nook checked out, but it's become a sort of December tradition, like some people have Fear or Amnesia or Dead Space as their traditions for Halloween. Speaking of Dead Space, though, Quake 4 actually starts off on a kind of similar note to Dead Space in its intro. And as you may notice with this intro, it doesn't look as good as it probably should. That's because whoever designed the interface, which the interface we will get into in detail in one other aspect later in this review, didn't actually make half the buttons do anything. You set it to Ultra, you set all the tabs properly, and it still looks like it's kind of just everything got sandblasted and no one bothered to do much more than paint over it. The PNGs on everyone's shoulders that tell what squad they're from still look crisp and clean, but everything else is a mess. That's why you need to have this neat little thing that someone conveniently created. You can manually switch on and off the things that change these things, but I'll leave in the description below a neat little link that'll take you to the guy that actually reset the configurations. Only downside is he didn't wind up adjusting the volume, so you'll have to reset that because the volume in this is beyond loud. But once you have all that in, it's literally just a file you drag and drop. It changes some file texture zeros and ones, and it brings it up to this, the way it's supposed to be, where the guns aren't just bricks that are colored, and people aren't random gobs of clay. Though, speaking of the interface as far as options, we should probably address the second elephant in the room, sound. You know, the important thing for horror games, and let's be honest here, Quake 4, behind everything, was in that era of id where they wanted to make horror games rather than action games. And it shows in several spots, and you can actually see the sort of duct tape in it, where they show horror thing, someone getting dragged away, or something crawling along or skittering along to spook you, before it immediately goes into a high-octane action thing when you actually get introduced to the thing. This was being made around the same time that Doom 3 was just having been released, and released after the point, or released during the time when most of the reviews from the fans were finally getting out online, so partway through they had a sort of change in direction back to more action orientation. It shows. I played this on the hardest difficulty. The other difficulties are like really easy. though then you get the massive jump when you hit General. It's a mess. The General is a mess, especially in the later stages, but we'll get into that later. Back to the interface. There's only one slider for volume. You have volume. Voice volume and sound volume are not separate things. There is no way to make them separate things. They are a single slider. This is a major issue, especially when you're going deaf from explosions and whatnot, but at the same time, the voices are not balanced enough to, how do I put this, to speak over top of the gunshots and the like. So you wind up hearing all these explosions, and the voices are sort of like this. They kind of just are quieted down as if someone's trying to quietly tell you like you're sneaking up on the enemy. And it leads to several instances of... I'm sorry, what was that command? I didn't hear you over the sound of our people bombing this area. Or, I didn't hear that over the sound of gunfire in the other room. But, I mean, no one really plays Quake 4 for the story, so it's not a major issue. Quake 4's story is less, how do I put this? Less done than Doom 3's. It's more toward the era of older id games, where it's basically just a reason for why you're going through these different levels than it is a, here's the reason why we're invested here to save the world. You're invested in it because it is Earth, and Earth is what's going to be attacked if you don't. But on to the gameplay. Mouse sensitivity is a bit wonk. You can adjust it. It doesn't do a whole lot. You're either in issues where your mouse is too slow and you can't hit anything, or you can't get the more minute things, which is an issue for things like the railgun when you zoom in. I didn't have much issue with a lot of the gunplay. You start off with only a pistol, you move on to getting an assault rifle, getting a shotgun, getting a grenade launcher, and you progress with weapons as you go through. As you saw in the intro, you also can get upgrades for these different weapons. There, as far as I know, aren't any hidden ones. Unless they're so hidden that no one has found them. Most of them are story progression. You get chain lightning as an upgrade for your lightning gun. You get increased rocket speed for your rocket launcher, where it launches multiple rockets at a time. You get lock-on for your nail gun. Some of them make a little bit of sense. Extended clips, the ability to actually use a magazine for your shotgun rather than having to manually load every shell. Most of them make sense. The railguns doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There's a sort of bridge where, on one hand, why does the railgun not have its only upgrade, which is penetration? Why does the railgun not have penetration until it's upgraded? And why does the penetration, A, not increase how much damage it does? And B, it's kind of useless because enemies tend to not bunch up in a way that you can actually get collaterals. So the enemies are smart. It's no major issue. It kind of is just a more personal me thing where I don't know what the point in it is. Though, speaking earlier on story being just a progression of ways to go, I suppose that's what I should touch on next. Story is your standard for id. Things are either have attacked, and this is a sequel to previous games you're on the attack to make sure that they can't attack back. It's like Doom 2 more than Doom 1. You're not trying to retake anything, you're trying to take over something. Halfway through, you wind up finding about this nexus. All the Strogg are in a hive mind of sorts. Your goal is to take care of the nexus. That fails, you get captured, you get turned into a Strogg, which is one of those iconic gaming moments that people label as quote-unquote horrifying. It kind of blacks you out for a lot of the more horrifying bits of it. And some points in it kind of just jumps. Your arms don't get severed, they just kind of disappear and reappear as Strogg arms in it. But it's up there with Dead Space's eye, like cerebral implant thing, and it's one of the things that people kind of comment about, one of the more horrific game sequences. But you get Stroggified. They don't get the cerebral implant that is supposed to mind control you inactivated. It can't apparently be activated remotely for plot reasons. No one behind you is released, so there's not a group of Strogg humans that are being brought out. It is you are the only Strogg human hybrid that actually winds up being freed. There's a few plot holes, but from there you return, come up with a new plan, decide to go out, get a bunch of towers that lead you to the Nexus, go through each of the towers, activate lights that take you up to the main tower, teleport to the main tower, get trapped, fight your way through till you can get to the center, fight the guy that wound up abducting you in the first place, twice, beat the big mother brain, bada bing, bada boom, tease for a sequel. That never happened. I don't really have much to comment on the sequel that never happened. A lot of people can kind of agree that it's kind of probably a good thing. Mark's on the side of it's a good thing. I think that with recent Doom, they have a region that they could have possibly actually done pretty well with a sequel now, but they seem to be holding Doom close to their heart, and it's reasonable. Doom is obviously a fan favorite. It's something that a lot of people really love, and it's kind of the one that people play more for the campaign. Quake's more the arena PvP combat. So them having Quake Arena and focusing more on the multiplayer aspect of it makes sense. Both sides of the coin have their own spot, and that's what they were smart enough to focus on. The game is relatively stable on modern machines. I had maybe a total of 6 crashes. There were 2 spots in it that had false crashes, is what I'm going to label them as. They stopped and had the spinning wheel of death where it was thinking and then continued. Can't really complain too much about stability. The only thing that I do have to complain about is one other aspect at the end. There is what I would call a bullshit arena, because they are literally just tossing bullshit at you the whole time in the arena. They send... The first wave is 2 big commanders, which after you kill one spawns another one. You go through that. Then you get 3 of the Spider Strogg. kill them, and then you get 3 of these floating enemies that up until this moment have only been outside and have only been in vehicle sections. There's a good reason for this. These enemies fire rockets that are heat-seeking, and in the highest difficulty that I was playing, can one-shot you. If they don't one-shot you because you avoid them, which is, depending on the arena, kind of difficult to do, they will shove you. This is an issue if you're unlucky with the spawns in the final arena, can happen. The final boss fight was not difficult because of the boss. It was not difficult because it was 3 bosses in a row. It was difficult because I had one of them and a wraith that were chasing me around the top area. So I had to find a way to actually deal enough damage to kill him in order for me to actually be able to fight the boss. And then once he was dead and the wraith was dead, there was no challenge at all. I sat myself in a corner, I shot the shield generator for the big brain, and then I lobbed grenades at the big brain. That was it. And I did that cycle about 4 times, and then watched the cutscene. That's it. Cutscenes are actually done relatively well. They actually do update with the graphics quality. Against all odds, they aren't just pre-rendered cutscenes, they're in-game rendered cutscenes. Which has its own fair share of issues, but there's not much to complain about in regards to it. Though one thing that is a bit of an issue is some instances where allies that make no sense to be invulnerable are invulnerable, and some allies that are completely that should be invulnerable, like named plot relevant characters, have a health bar, an invisible health bar, mind you, and in the higher difficulties can quite easily be one-shot or two-shot by enemies, or just get overwhelmed by the amount of enemies. As for enemies in the difficulty, Quake goes about it in a pretty interesting way. Some give them increased damage, some make them spongy because they already do a lot of damage. Quake goes right down the middle and decides let's do both. Headshots with the railgun kill absolutely nothing in a single shot in the highest difficulty. These guys are spongy beyond belief. They will absolutely eat ammo. Though at the same time, they are beyond tanky. And it really shows in later levels once you have an arsenal at your disposal. You wind up actually needing the power weapons. And, mind you, the power weapons don't really do a lot. The grenade launcher doesn't have enough range to be effective except for tossing downstairs or in the final battle against a stationary enemy. And the dark matter gun, which is the only other quote-unquote power weapon that I can really speak on, doesn't kill anything aside from the 2 base Strogg in a single shot. Absolutely nothing. It doesn't do enough damage to kill human-sized enemies. It fires miniaturized black holes and Commando Strog can survive. This game holds a special place in my heart, but I would not in many, many years ever play it on the highest difficulty again. I think that it is a bit overhated, and it deserves more credit than it actually gets. But it is far from a perfect game. It was in id's Doom 3 era, so you can tell that there's a few spots in it that are a bit rough around the edges. But unlike How to Survive 2, I could actually recommend Quake. If you're playing it in pretty much any other difficulty, I'd probably give it a 3.5 or 4 out of 5. If you are playing it in the highest difficulty, don't. As I said to a friend of mine, Ash, I would rather do a melee-only run of Metro 2033 than I would play this on the highest difficulty again. Especially in the final act. Enemies become far too spongy. They try and do the survival horror thing of not giving you a lot of ammo. And even the power weapons aren't insta-kills. So don't play it in the highest difficulty. But if it's on sale, definitely go for it. It's not terribly expensive, even off sale. It's only around $15 off sale. It's not like Activision where they decide, oh, our games are so great, we still gotta make them $60, even 15 years after the fact. No, but when it's on sale, it often goes on sale for a pretty decent price. Currently, in the winter sale, which is going to only last a couple, maybe 2 days, I think, as of the time that I'm recording this, it's only $5. Definitely worth that price. Again, in order to make the graphics good, there is a link in the description for a fix. And this is, obviously, since it's the 31st, this is going to be my last video of the year. So, Happy New Year to all of you, and that is going to be it for me for this video because I've got stuff to do. And unlike How to Survive, I don't have a whole lot to complain about. This is a solid game, excluding a few rough around the edges points, especially in the highest difficulty. But, if you liked, subscribe to become part of the Phoenix Brotherhood. Follow me on Twitch if you want to watch me play games such as this and do challenge runs and continue the completion project at twitch.tv/Nasu Amaya. And that's going to be it for me. Bye.